Okay, so in this video, we would learn about some other concepts of self, which are very important in understanding how we see ourselves and, how we understand ourselves. So, the first thing that we're going to learn here is the concept of self-esteem. So, you may have already heard of this word. It's an English word, self-esteem. So, trying to understand this from a psychological perspective, self-esteem would be the value or worth that we place on ourselves. So, in your mind, how much of worth and value do you place on yourself? How competent do you think you are? How important do you think you are in this world, or with respect to any particular skill or talent? How much do you think of yourself? Do you think very high of yourself, or do you think very low of yourself? I'm not that great. I don't know how I will manage. So you may have seen some people who may necessarily not be very good at what they do, but they are so confident. They believe they can do it. They believe they are great at it. Whether or not they're actually good at it, in their mind, they believe they are good at it. So they have a go at it confidently, right? So those are the people whom we say are high on self-esteem. So, in order to find out the level of self esteem in various people, so we have got self esteem questionnaire, self esteem tests, which ideally have questions like I think I'm quite popular, or I'm usually chosen by my friends to play. Yeah, I'm good at schoolwork, or I can do my homework really well. And the degree to which people agree to these statements tells us the level of their self esteem. So, why is self esteem very important, especially in children? And it is also very important in adults, by the way, is because it has a direct link to our behavior in our day to day life. So, for example, children with high academic self esteem who believe that they are quite good in studies actually perform better in studies, and children who have low self-esteem, who have doubts about how well they can do, actually do not perform so well. And the same applies for every stage of life wherever you go. So in general, we see first you need to believe yourself that you are capable of doing great things, right? So you need to have high self-esteem, and only then you can actually put it down to practice. So it's actually very important to cultivate high self-esteem among children from right very early stages. So it has been shown that warm, kind parenting, accepting parents who will tell their children right from an early age that yes, you are good at so and so, and yes, you can do it, and come on, it is in you're capable of achieving this. Those kinds of parents who inculcate such kinds of values, who praise children every time they achieve something, those kinds of parenting are actually shown to inculcate high self-esteem among children. So that is self-esteem, the value and worth that we place on ourselves as individuals. The second aspect of ourself we would talk about is self-efficacy. So, what is self-efficacy? Self-efficacy is how much do we believe things in our life are in our control. So, do you think you are in charge of your own life, or do you think it's all up to fate? भगवान जैसा चाहेगा वैसा होगा, or it's somewhere written in your fate. There is some environmental factor that will determine how the course of things are going to be, and you can't do anything to change it. It's all already pre-decided. So people who believe that they themselves are in charge of their own lives and their behaviors and their actions are actually said to be high on self-efficacy. Okay, so these are very confident people. They don't get scared every time something goes wrong in their life, because what is there to get scared? If everything is in your hands, then you can as well change anything in your life whenever you want, right? So do you understand why having a high sense of self-efficacy is very important? On the other hand, people who actually believe that there are very few things that they can do to change their own life circumstances or their own behavior, and it's all in the hands of God or life or fate or some third factor totally. Can you understand how quickly they will get disturbed every time something wrong or bad happens in their life? Because you're going to feel helpless, because if you believe it's not in your hands, then there's nothing really you can do about it. So actually, people with low sense of self-efficacy are known to be more prone to having troubles like anxiety, depression, and various other mental disorders. They give in to stressful situations much more easily as compared to people who are high on self efficacy, because they're confident people and they believe things are in their own hands and they can change their life some way or the other. So if there's a problem, all they need to do is just find a solution, right? Again, self efficacy is again a skill that can be learned. So we can teach children to have a higher sense of self efficacy, again through effective parenting and teaching strategies, by telling children right from the beginning that every time something goes wrong, you can do something and you can bring about a change in this. Or every time a child fails, rather than saying it was bound to happen every time something bad happens, help your child understand by saying, okay, you can do something to change it next time. It is right there in your hands. So those kinds of children, when they turn into adults, they have got high resilience to stress, and they perform much better in their day-to-day life. So that was self-efficacy. So we did self-esteem and we did self-efficacy. Now the third thing that we will do in this video is self-regulation. So as the name says, self-regulation. So self-regulation is how capable do we think we are in monitoring and controlling our own behavior? Should the environment and circumstances demand, can I quickly change my behavior to the way it is needed? How much in charge I am to control my behavior. So I love sweets badly. Oh, I got diabetes. So how much self-regulation skills do I think I have to be able to stop eating sweets completely when I know I like it so much? Okay, so that is self-regulation, our ability to regulate our own behavior, control and regulate our own behavior. So self-regulation is often used synonymously with the term self-control. So what is self-control again? Self-control is stopping yourself from immediate gratification. You want something, you would stop yourself from getting it immediately. You will wait for it, and then you will have it in a delayed fashion. So that is called delayed gratification. So if you actually see in our Indian culture, we actually cultivate this value of delayed gratification and self-control. The culture of vrat that we have in our Hindu religion, and for that matter, rosas we have in Muslim religion, and in some way or the other, actually it's part of all cultures and all religion, where you're actually taught and expected to control your wishes and needs, and teach yourself some value of self-control. Okay, so it is very good to have this high sense of self-regulation, because it gives you a very powerful sense of confidence over your own behavior. So if you are high on self-regulation, you'll be confident that you can change your behavior whenever needed, right? So for example, people high on self-regulation will find it much easier to stop smoking the day they decide to, right? Because it is in their hand to control that desire. There are 3 different steps through which actually we can teach ourselves the art of self-regulation. So the first is observation of your own behavior. So the 3 strategies that we use for self-regulation is, number 1, observation of your own behavior. Now, observing your behavior, number 1, is very important, because that will give you all the required information in understanding what kind of behavior and where is it required to change. Until and unless you fully understand the problem, the behavior that is needed to be regulated, and all aspects surrounding it, you probably will not be able to control it properly. So first thing you have to learn is to observe your own behavior. Second thing, the second step would then be self-instruction. So after self-observation, you self-instruct yourself. So all right, I am not going to play my online video games till my exam gets over. I'm going to self-instruct myself. I am not going to touch that phone till my exam gets over, which is coming up right next week. So you give instructions to yourself. Okay, so that is self-instruction. And the third step is self-reinforcement. So after you have been successful in regulating the behavior that you did, so say for example, you managed to successfully stay away from those online video games till your exams got over, you reward yourself. Like, okay, so I'm going to go watch that movie, or I'm going to go buy that dress that I've really wanted for a long time because I was able to do this successfully. Or I'm going to go ahead and play that video game for 2 hours straight without any interference because that is my reward for staying away from it when I needed it to be. That is the only way we can teach ourselves self-regulation. Okay, so self-observation, self-instruction, followed by self-reinforcement. Following these 3 steps, we can teach ourselves the art of self-regulation. So again, in this video, we covered 3 very important aspects of self. Number 1 was self-esteem, which is the value and the worth we place on ourselves, right? How important are we in our own mind? Second was self-efficacy, which is how much do we think we are in control of our own life circumstances? How much are we in charge of our own behavior and the things that happen around us? And the third was self-regulation. How much in charge are we in controlling and monitoring our own behavior? So after listening to this video, I want you to go and prepare short notes on what is self-esteem, with an example, what happens to people when they have high self-esteem and what happens to people when they have low self-esteem. You want a second question on self-efficacy. What does it mean, along with examples, and how does it help to have high self-efficacy, and what happens to those people who are low on self-efficacy? And the third question that I will write answer is what is self-regulation, and the 3 strategies involved in the process of self-regulation. Do not go to the next video till you actually write answers to these 3 questions. Okay, bye-bye.